Okay. Okay, sorry, gentlemen. We seem to have lost a connection on that one. And Dr. Mavhasa, you were still explaining to us about the issue of the of what the government has done in terms of emergency responses.
He had already done that.
Okay. Okay. So
he had already finished lying.
Okay. So, Chief, let's talk about the issue of the poor cuts in Zimbabwe. We've seen a lot of poor cuts in Zimbabwe, and I'm one of the people who've always said, what Zimbabwe now needs to do, ZESA actually needs to begin to say to households, come and pay for solar system, and ZESA begins to actually install solar systems in every household. So people get solar systems that are subsidized from government, so that it doesn't become heavy on the government on the national grid. What's your take on the issue of power cuts? How can that be solved? Because we also understand sooner than later, Kariba Dam is going to be running out of water. What's your take, Chief, on that one?
I mean, 24 years after independence, we are still talking about Kariba.
24, 42 years.
42 years after independence, we are still talking about Kariba, which was built by the Smith regime. What has the government of Zimbabwe done? They've not done anything. We have Wange Kolari that they've failed to resuscitate. Right now, they are owing billions of dollars, and that's the reason why we are having the power cuts. They tried to do what you're talking about, the solar system, and they gave all the money to Wicknell Chivayo, who used all the money for personal use, and that's some of the money that he's using right now to buy cars that is parceling out to ordinary Zimbabweans. So we have a government that has really failed to do anything to do with power. They failed to improve from what they inherited from the Smith regime. And they talk about Zimbabwe being open for business. There is no way you can be open for business when you don't have power. Industry cannot operate without power. So that's an issue that will only be resolved by President Chamisa or the opposition when we come into power. Because right now, the government of Zimbabwe is doing nothing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Chief, what could be really a solution on the issue of this electricity problem? Because there needs to be a solution, and I've provided my own take, thinking that maybe ZESA can actually, government can do a subsidized solar system installation to all households, where households can get solar systems from ZESA at a subsidized price, you understand? So that it's not heavy on the national grid, and then the national grid is able to supply industries and hospitals, you understand, with electricity.
Yes, that may be a solution, but you don't have to include ZESA in that equation, because ZESA is corrupt, ZESA is ZANU-PF, ZESA will misuse the funds, and at the end of the day, the people will still be suffering. The solution lies in allowing private enterprise, private equity to come in and come up with solar fields. We've seen it happening here in America. We use solar anyway. Other countries are doing it successfully. They tried to do it with Chivayo, but Chivayo ran away with the money. So that is what we need to do in Zimbabwe. Allow private investors to come in and invest in power, invest in solar systems, and even take over Wange Kolari and Kariba power stations, because right now the government is trying to do all those, but with the corruption that is rooted in its systems, nothing is ever going to come, nothing is ever going to work. We'll always be struggling, and without power, we can't improve even economically.
Okay, so that's the only way we're going to be able to solve this electricity power cuts. But we've also seen the issue of even of access to clean and safe water. A lot of water cuts in the country, and we've seen a lot of burst pipes. And this has been going for years, but it's also the high time when the water pipes have to be changed in Zimbabwe. What's your take on that one, Chief, as you try and wait for Dr. Mavhasa to come back into the meeting?
What I've always said to people that ZANU-PF have managed to complete the ruralization of Zimbabwean urban centers, and that's the reason why you're seeing that people are now drilling boreholes in the city centers, in Glenview, in Warren Park, because the government has dismally failed to provide a basic necessity, a basic need, which is water. And the same applies to power. We are now using Mbaura. We are now having to resort to Marambi, things that we used to do 20, 30, 40 years ago, because the government is not investing in any power generating activities. In fact, they're just investing in corruption, and all the money that is supposed to be used to resuscitate Hwange, to resuscitate Kariba, and to make sure that we have water, we have dams in Zimbabwe, is being taken by the Russians, is being taken by the Chinese, is being taken by the likes of Chivayo and a few ZANU-PF people. The money needs to be in the country, it needs to be in the government coffers, but all that money that we're getting from our vast resources is going to select individuals, and it's not being used for the purposes of developing the country and making sure that we have power and we have water in the country.
Okay. Dr. Mavhasa, thank you so much for coming back into the interview. We're looking now at the issue of power cuts, electricity power cuts in Zimbabwe, and I was giving a proposal to say, why doesn't government through ZESA do a subsidized solar program whereby all households can actually go to ZESA and purchase a solar system which is subsidized by government? Then the national grid is not heavily loaded, and that electricity that the national grid produces can go into industry and can get into for hospitals. What's your take on the issue of power cuts, and what could be a solution?
Right, the solution you are bringing up is a very good one to be explored, and I think there are channels which would look into it, and I think probably if you could put it in writing, ZESA will be very happy to explore that. But this problem we are having now with power cuts, it's not or does not show the inefficiency of the Ministry of Energy or the government at all. It is actually the regional problem. There are power cuts in South Africa.
But let's look at Zimbabwe.
No, I want you to understand this. Let me not give the answer you guys are willing to see. I need you to look at the answer so that you can understand what's happening in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe shares the hydro system with Zambia. So we cannot talk about Zimbabwe without talking about Zambia, because we share the same source of energy. And therefore, we do sometimes... Again,
but Hwange, you don't share Hwange with Zambia.
Yes, but let me explain without looking only at the faults. We are saying the power cuts we are having now, which are quite severe, are regional and not national. Again, as we talk to the Hwange grid, as we are saying the grid at Hwange, we have been doing the best we can to have Hwange actually revamped with so many grids which have been created and rehabilitated. And yes, there are so many things which the ministry is doing now. They are not sleeping day and night to find ways to make sure that there will be electricity for everybody. That has been our policy. That has been our campaign motto, to say there will be electricity for everybody by 2030. And yes, it will be, and there will be, and we are fighting to do it. What's happening now, it's not inefficient. It's actually a problem which we are all facing, and we are hoping to overcome.
Yeah,
so therefore...
Dr. Mavhasa, my question was, let's look at the issue of the power cuts in Zimbabwe. What could be the solution? I gave a solution to say the government needs to do a subsidized solar system program through ZESA, where every household can go to ZESA, get a solar system installed in their house, and then the national grid is not overloaded. You understand? Then as Zimbabwe, you can have a solution to that. So when we look at these problems, yes, it can be a regional problem, but how do we solve? How do you look for solutions to this problem? Because a policy is not a problem, is not a solution. A policy is just on paper. It's not practical. What could be a solution?
That, at the moment, all the solutions are being explored, and we'll see which ones would work. As you might not be aware, there are so many, most villages now, we have introduced solar systems, government solar programs, which are being installed in houses, in rural areas and in towns.
No, that's not happening, Dr. Mavhasa. Let's be truthful to ourselves.
No, you're not listening. Do you know people are now given solar and they'll be paying about £10 a month in the rural areas?
£10 a month, because
yes.
I thought Zimbabwe used Zig dollars, not pounds.
Yeah, no, we use dollars. That's $10 a month.
Yeah, but you said £10.
No, you should appreciate that I'm talking from the seats in the UK where we use pounds. But at least there is that system which is going on now. People can simply apply. They've got fridges, they've got TVs, they've got everything.
No, but Dr. Mavhasa, you're not being truthful to me, you understand? Because there is nowhere in Zimbabwe where government says you can pay $10 a month and you get power, you understand? And you get a fridge. And no, that's not happening. Let's be a bit honest and let's be genuine.
Ask Chief. People are applying for solar. There are companies now which are certified by the government.
No, but those every company is just a private company. It's not a government company.
No, the companies are actually subsidized by the government. They are actually helping people out there. $3, $5, and
I'd love to do a research on that. Can you just provide us with two companies? Give us just two companies.
I will send you the details. We can have another argument later, but this is what is happening. And Zimbabweans who are listening to you now, they are laughing at you because they know there's solar in the rural areas, deep in the rural areas, which they are paying £3, $5 to $10, depending with the amount of solar equipment they are using at the houses, which has not been happening. And some actually are told they would pay at the end of the harvest, which means they are going to get a reprieve because of the drought. So it's not true to say the government is quiet. And again, let me respond to Chief. Chief was actually breathing victory and saying that Zimbabwe is being made into a rural area, all these towns by the government, which is wrong. When we drilled boreholes in towns, it is actually to alleviate the drought problem, the water problems, and there was a lot of things which the government could not just sit and say we cannot put a borehole because it will look like a rural area. Where people need water, we give them water in whatever way, in whatever form it comes. So when boreholes are being put in towns, we are not making the towns look like rural areas. We are making people get water while we are sorting out the water crisis. So it is wrong. It is wrong for him to say that, and it's wrong for you to agree with him when you are saying wrong things.
No, I never agreed with him. All I'm doing is I'm the interviewer. I'm between the two of you guys. So I never agreed with him. Anyway, gentlemen, let's look at the issue of SADC. We saw President Mnangagwa being made the SADC chairman. We've seen a lot of things happening in the SADC. We've heard so many reports, some which are fake, some which are true, saying no, ZANU-PF is going to also be participating in elections in Mozambique, in Botswana. And we've seen a lot of things happen within the SADC. So the comment that I need is, let's first look at President Mnangagwa being the SADC chairman. Let's look at things that have been happening within the SADC ever since he assumed chairmanship. How has things been happening in the SADC, Chief?
There's nothing that has happened. In fact, the ascension of Mr. Mnangagwa to the chairmanship of SADC has embarrassed the nation, embarrassed the region, because we now have a chairperson of SADC who himself is illegitimate, who is not recognized by his own people. And what we were saying when he became chairperson, that is not going to be a proper fit for this position, is what we are seeing in Mozambique, where we have seen Zimbabwe importing electoral fraud in other countries. They are importing electoral malpractices in other countries. In SADC, they were involved in Mozambique. The evidence is there. The videos are there. They sent Zimbabweans to go and vote in Mozambique. And Mr. Mnangagwa actually congratulated the Mozambican president before even the electoral body in Mozambique had declared him a winner. They tried to do it in Namibia. They did it. They tried to do it in South Africa, but unfortunately they were embarrassed because the ANC lost. They also tried to do it in Botswana, and we heard the Botswana people saying, we are not going to tolerate ZANU-PF here. In Namibia, we have videos, we have evidence that ZANU-PF was trying to involve itself in the Namibian election and influence the decision. Obet Mpofu, the Secretary General of ZANU-PF, was publicly making statements in favor of a certain political party. That's not what a chairman of SADC does. We are the chairman of SADC. We are supposed to remain neutral. We cannot make pronouncements to a fellow Liberation Party or any party that we prefer to win an election. It is very wrong. And lastly, it is very wrong for SADC, for what SADC did, that they put a person who stole an election in Zimbabwe, who has been perennially stealing elections in Zimbabwe, to be in charge of SADC. SADC itself, by its own admission in its report, said they do not recognize Mr. Mnangagwa because Mr. Mnangagwa stole an election. SADC had a report to that effect, and then they later on, a few months, allowed him to become chairperson. That was very wrong.
But Chief, in terms of the SADC, you understand, SADC has got a system which it rotates. It was the time for the SADC chairmanship to come to Zimbabwe, number one. Number two, SADC only said the elections in Zimbabwe were not, had anomalies done, you understand? And SADC never said President Mnangagwa never won the election. Then we also come again and say, in the issue of elections, if President Mnangagwa stole the election, the opposition could have gone to the Constitutional Court again to lodge what? An appeal against the election results, and they didn't do that. So just in 30 seconds, just respond to those.
When SADC says an election is fraught with irregularities, that the election was not free, fair, and credible, they can't then endorse that same election because it's spreading bad practices. When an election is fraught with irregularities, it must be nullified. The president or the person who is said to have won that election must not be recognized, not by SADC, not by the international community. And of course, here in Zimbabwe, we do not recognize him as a legitimate leader because we know that he stole an election. But what SADC is doing is sowing bad seeds in the electoral arena. If an election has been stolen, it has been stolen. The winner of a stolen election cannot be legitimate, cannot be recognized, and cannot be rewarded the way Mr. Mnangagwa was rewarded, that he is now the chairperson of SADC.
But the same question, Chief, then comes to say, wherever President Mnangagwa goes, he's always acknowledged as the Zimbabwean president, regionally, continentally, and internationally. They are recognizing him as the Zimbabwean president, even within Zimbabwe. So when we look at the issues of President Mnangagwa being the president of Zimbabwe, when the opposition failed to go to the Constitutional Court to challenge that his win, right now as it stands, President Mnangagwa is the president until 2028, and it's a fact, and we cannot deny it.
Yes, by default, yes, he is the president of Zimbabwe, but the people of Zimbabwe know the truth. The people of Zimbabwe know that President Chamisa won that election. The issue of going to court, we cannot even discuss it because we went to court after the 2018 election, and you know what happened. We have captured courts, and they staged the court decision in favor of Mr. Mnangagwa. So where do we go to?
Okay, Dr. Mavhasa, I want to bring you into the conversation. Let's look at the issue of SADC. You understand? President Mnangagwa assumed the chairmanship of SADC, and let's look at the things that have been happening within SADC ever since he assumed his chairmanship into SADC. Let's look at what has been happening in terms of SADC elections. We've also heard stories which are not true, and some which are true, saying ZANU-PF has been interfering in elections in other SADC countries. What's your take?
The first thing is the ZANU-PF did not interfere in any country's elections. But what we must appreciate and understand is that ZANU-PF is a revolutionary party. So we do have revolutionary parties in the region. And the revolutionary parties, they've got an understanding with each other, and they've got an assistance with each other. They've got working together, they do. And therefore, it is not a crime for a revolutionary party to pay solidarity to another party. I gave an example, which I'll give again today. When the elections in America were going on, the Labour Party of United Kingdom, which is now in power right now, they sent a delegation to go and support Madam Kamala in the campaigns. and nobody had said this was wrong. But why does it become wrong when ZANU-PF goes to in solidarity with its other revolutionary parties? Now to say and make it clear, in Botswana, ZANU-PF did not interfere with all parties. It simply, as a party,
you endorsed their candidates. You endorsed their candidate.
ZANU-PF as a party and not as a country did support the party which they wanted, which they loved as a party to party. But Zimbabwe as a country did not go and support a party. Zimbabwe did not involve itself in party politics of other countries. But what was involved in party politics is party to party politics. And therefore, there was no interference by the Zimbabwean government. And that comes an answer which we have already given, but which I want to reiterate, that Chief Svosve, if you don't understand it, Zimbabwe, Comrade Emerson Mnangagwa, the president of Zimbabwe, he is not himself the leader of SADC, but Zimbabwe is the chairperson of SADC. SADC is given to a country that position at a given period, and it does not become his own. That's why the president says to the Zimbabweans, no, when you are a Zimbabwean, wherever you are, Chief Svosve, where you are sitting there, you are the chairperson of SADC, where you are sitting right there, even though you have got a cocaine brains, but you remain SADC chairperson by default. So yes, the chairpersonship of SADC has nothing to do with ZANU-PF. It's everything to do with the country, Zimbabwe, and unfortunately, it is under the command of the president, who is the president of Zimbabwe, and therefore there is nothing wrong. So SADC has actually seen a number of successful elections, except one which is disputed in Mozambique, but we've done well. But let me finish this explanation.
Please, Chief, Mavhasa, in 30 seconds. I'm giving you 30 seconds.
Yes. I wanted us to understand that, you see, the system which the opposition has, and this opposition system is still in the minds of people like Chief Svosve here, to criticize your country where it's supposed to be praised is wrong. People would see the country through the eyes of opposition, through the eyes of people like Chief Svosve. We must see Zimbabwe as it is. Zimbabwe is doing its best to contain its problems and sort them out. Politically, Zimbabwe is fine, and it's actually exporting political tolerance in Zimbabwe to other countries.
Okay, Dr. Mavhasa, thank you very much. So, gentlemen, time is there for a friend, and when everything is becoming exciting and hot, we have to go. So, just to wrap up, I'm going to give you both 2 minutes each. You understand? To give us your own overall submissions on everything that we've spoken about, and what you think needs to be done next year for Zimbabwe, to move forward. What has to be done? So I'll start with you, Chief. What do you think? And what's your summary on what we've discussed? And what do you think Zimbabwe should do in 2025 to progress, to move forward?
Well, for us to move forward, we have to acknowledge that as a nation, we've failed. The so-called ruling party has failed the people of Zimbabwe. What it has introduced, the laws, the economic laws that it has introduced, like the introduction of ZIG, has dismally failed. It was not an informed decision. The government itself does not recognize ZIG. That's why you see Mr. Mnangagwa giving money in US dollars wherever he is. The government departments are not using ZIG. Passport, they still demand US dollars. At the border, they still demand US dollars. When you pay for tickets in Zimbabwe, you pay in US dollars. So the government itself has no confidence in the currency that it is wanting the Zimbabwean people to have confidence in. So that one has to be scratched. We need a currency that is backed by production. In fact, we just need to dollarize. Introducing Zimbabwean fake currencies is not going to help Zimbabweans. And of course, we need a massive investment in infrastructure, such as in power. For Zimbabwe to be open for business, truly open for business, we need power, we need water, and the government has failed to do anything except to use what the Smith regime has built. In fact, they have even failed to maintain what they inherited from the Smith regime. So instead of giving money to individuals, allowing individuals to put money in their pockets. All the money that is coming from our resources must be channeled towards national development. Zimbabwe, as I have said before, Zimbabwe is not poor. It's only poorly managed. If we can get all the resources that are in Zimbabwe and make sure that we have a true policy of zero tolerance to corruption, and we take all the money that is coming from our resources, and that money is channeled towards infrastructure development, will not only create employment, but will guarantee investors with things, essentials like power and water. But first, the biggest thing that we need to do, Tafadzwa, is to ensure that there is zero tolerance to corruption. Corruption has killed Zimbabwe. We are using billions of dollars every year to corruption.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chief. Dr. Mavhasa, 2 minutes, you understand? Everything that we've spoken about and then what you think it should be done in 2025 for Zimbabwe to move forward. But I also want you to address the issue of the economy of Zimbabwe, the issue of the ZIG, the loss of gold to the gold mafia that happened this year. And so your 2 minutes starts right now so that we wrap up.
Yeah, in short, we just have to say, every country in the world has its own problems. And Zimbabwe has its own problems. And every country has its own criminals. We've got our criminals as well who have been stealing our gold. And these people are not part of the government, and they are not the government, even though they want to claim to be. So we want to say clearly that 2024 has been a very busy year for Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe has actually, the government has actually revamped its fight against corruption. Unbeknown to Chief Svosve, Zimbabwe has been actually fighting corruption. We have ZAC, and we've got Comrade Reza in ZAC. He's actually cutting the edges like a razor blade, his name. And indeed, people are being arrested, and you will see a lot of convictions this coming year. We have got people, we've got SACU, which is another an anti-corruption unit, which has been set aside by the president. It's working in its own way. You'll be seeing the results very soon. And the police have got a dedicated department for anti-corruption. And therefore, you realize that we are not taking the issues of corruption easily as a government. Zimbabwe is actually doing its best to fight corruption, because corruption is the most difficult cancer in every economy. Yes, Zimbabwe has actually introduced its own currency, which we call ZIG, which is actually supported by our own gold. Yes, it had faced problems, not because it was a problematic currency. No, it's because we've got people who do not support their own economy. ZIG, the problem because people did not have confidence in it. But as you can see now, it's coming back. It's getting stronger by day. We cannot be a country. We cannot be a sovereign state if we don't have our own currency. So we had to have a ZIG as our own currency. But as you must realize, ZIG is not a standalone currency in Zimbabwe. It is actually striving in the multi-currency regime where we use the US dollar and as well. And again, we need to say clearly the point which you want to understand. Zimbabwe has actually shown that it is actually a constitutional outfit led by a constitutional party, which is ZANU-PF. And the 2030 slogan, which we are hearing here and there, it will die down, as you can see. And again, in conclusion, let me finish, because
time, Dr. Mavhasa. 10 seconds.
Let me conclude. We this year, as it comes to an end, we want to say actually to offer our condolences to the former Vice President family, Vice President Poko, who will be buried in Bulawayo today, but he has been declared a national hero. We want you to understand that he has not refused to be buried at the Heroes Acre, but he has offered, the family has offered that he be buried at the family shrine. And that is not anything to do with the party, but it's simply, if you are a hero, you can be buried anywhere.
Okay, Dr. Mavhasa. Dr. Mavhasa, let's wrap up. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming through on this show. All I can do is wish you guys a Merry Christmas happy 2025 and hope to be catching up with you guys in 2025. But thank you so much for your time and always for your analysis and for your debates and discussion throughout the year. Right here from Galaxy Radio Florida, all I can say to you is all the best in 2025 and have yourself happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Today we're giving Chief Svosve a lot of time.
You always complain.
Okay, bye-bye.